Hi, my name is Lee Kottner, and I'm going to be your instructor for MAT-125, Web Design Fundamentals 1. This orientation is not only an orientation to Blackboard, but it's also an orientation to the class. So even though you might be familiar with Blackboard and you might feel totally comfortable with it, you still need to watch this because you're going to be expected to know everything that's in the orientation. I'm going to cover where to find certain kinds of things inside the class, how to do certain kinds of things inside the class, and so forth. Okay, to start, we are in our summer version of the MAT-125 class, but just so you know, if you happen to be watching this some other semester, it's basically still going to be the same in terms of how to navigate through the class and some of the basic things about, figuring out how to turn stuff in and things like that. Okay, so let's get started. It should open up on the announcements page. Right now I don't have any announcements because I haven't opened the class up yet and I haven't sent any announcements out. But you will see announcements here when you first log in. Okay, and there are a couple things I want to show you that are going to be in my view but not in your view, like where it says courses unavailable to students. Obviously you're not going to see that because I will make the course available, but then the other thing too is you're not going to have something for an edit mode. So just disregard that, and there might be a few other things in the bottom left, like this control panel that you won't see. Okay, so first thing is, let's look over here. On the left you have a section for overview, it's a subheader, and then that's where you would find announcements. As I said, we don't have any right now. The first thing that I want you to look at after reading through the announcement that will be here is I want you to go to class orientation. And you need to go through everything that's in this class orientation, whether it's watching a video, reading information, looking at connection information, what have you. You're responsible for knowing all of it. Okay, so in this class information, I give you a little bit of information about the way that you can watch videos. And just so you know, if you go to full screen on any of the YouTube videos, there is, once you start playing, there is a little gear icon where you can increase the quality if you're on a higher enough speed connection. Okay, and so then here's the orientation that we're doing now. And next is a link to the syllabus, which is going to, a lot of these, by the way, if you see something that looks like this little globe in a piece of paper, that means it's an external link outside of Blackboard. So if I open this, it's going to actually take you to my external teaching site that I keep separately from Blackboard. I do maintain this because sometimes Blackboard does go down, and I still want you to be able to get your assignments and so forth. Okay, so this is our syllabus. You'll need to read through this. Please read all of it. Don't skip through it. Some things I will call out that are very important is important class deadlines. Even if you're not taking this class during the time period that's allotted during the summer or something, this is still an important section where you need to look at the class deadlines. It's got drop dates, it has pass, no pass, status dates, it has last W dates, things like that. Very important. Also, I will have stuff for holidays, how to contact me. This is about the frequency with which I will respond to you, so you can read that as well. Okay. Course objectives, learning outcomes. These are things you should read to make sure that you are in the class that you want to be in. Okay. If you have a disability, please let me know as soon as possible so that I can start working with you as early as possible, and then that way I can help you best meet your needs for the class. Okay, we have some required textbooks. All right, this is going to be the required textbook, and then recommended. You don't have to buy this. It is recommended because I think it's a good book. Okay, software and computer. Again, I want you to read through this. There is no software in this class that you absolutely have to purchase. Okay, all the free all the software that I require is free. I do, however, recommend that you buy Photoshop if you can afford it. Right now, to buy Photoshop, it's a subscription base. You have to go to the Adobe website and figure out which subscription would be best for you. It's not cheap, but it is the industry standard tool. If you already have a subscription to Creative Cloud or to Photoshop, then that's wonderful. If not, you can also get a 30-day free trial, but again, this class is longer than 30 days, so it will eventually run out unless you have a second computer where you can run a free trial with a second account. Okay, completion of work, discussion boards, drawing comps. I want you to read all of this. I know everybody cares about the grading policy. Okay, so you need to go through the grading policy information, and here is the grading breakdown for the semester so that you can see how the grades will be assigned. And I do follow standard grading procedures when it comes to letter grades. That's basically the syllabus. But I do want you to go back and I want you to read all of it because you're responsible for all of it. I want you to also read the FAQs. The FAQs, by the way, if you see this odd-looking little link icon, that means that it's a link to another place in the Blackboard site. I want you to look up here real quick. And you'll notice there's a breadcrumb trail. Right here it shows that we're in the class orientation section. However, whenever I go down and I click on Read All FAQs, notice what happens, my breadcrumbs change. What it did was it jumped to the discussion board section, which if we were to jump to it manually, it's down here where I'm hovering my mouse. And if you see these little ellipses marks, you can click on that and it'll show you the entire pathway to where that item is found. So if you find that any course link takes you away from where you were, in, let's say in the class orientation, for instance, I want you to go through and I want you to read all these FAQs, but then you can jump back to the class orientation section. These are all questions that I am commonly asked. I want you to read all of these answers, okay? So like, for instance, a really good one that lots of people have questions for are the lessons in the textbook graded? There's always somebody, it seems like, who thinks that they are turning in the practice lessons that are in the book. No, you're not. Okay, so this is a good example of an FAQ. It's really important that you read them so that you have everything very clear from the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to class orientation. We'll come back down. And you've got some other stuff like MiraCosta Student Help Desk. This is a wealth of information. I get so many questions from students throughout the entire semester on some basic stuff that really I can't do for you. They're things that you have to do for yourself through SURF or going to the enrollment office or whatever. So a lot of your questions will be answered if you look first at this Student Help Desk. Getting to know Blackboard, there are lots of tutorials that you can go through if you haven't really used Blackboard very much. And this is a very good link. They have videos as well as just text-based information. Okay, now here's a thing that says server connection info. All right, I want you to read all of this stuff. This is important, but basically this is explaining to you how to connect to our web server for a class. All right, so this is not like a normal class where you just turn your stuff in through Blackboard and I read it and I grade it and it's done. What you have to do is you have to upload your work to a web server where you're going to have an account that's created for you. The accounts a lot of times are not created until the first day of class. Sometimes they do it before, sometimes they do it the night before. So I do want you to go, once you're in Blackboard and you have this information, I want you to go ahead and test I want you to test your connection based on this criteria down here. But don't be alarmed if it doesn't work right away, if it's before school has started. If it's after school has started and it's not working, you need to let me know right away because we got to get it fixed so you can turn your stuff in. Okay, so basically this is the host name, mat.miracosta.edu. And then this link right here is where you would go and you would look at your student work. Once it's uploaded, you go and you look at it through a web browser. Right now, if I click this link, it's not going to go anywhere because your last name and your first name, oh, looks like that's misspelled. But anyway, your last name and your first name is not really a real directory. This is where you would substitute your last name and your first name, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to this sentence, all right? And also for username, your username or your user ID is going to be your W number, and then whatever you use for your surf password, that's going to be the password that you use to get into the server. Okay, and then this is also important about what port to use. Okay, so how do you connect? All this information is all, terrific, but you're probably wondering, well, how do I actually connect? Well, you have to use some software to connect. It's referred to as an FTP or an SFTP client software. And you can use any of these: CyberDuck, FileZilla, Fugu. If you're on Windows, CyberDuck, FileZilla, WinSCP. And these are links to that software. But down here also, I make a recommendation. These are the ones that I like. MiraCosta makes a different recommendation, and you're free to use those if you wish. Those are also the ones that they're going to have on their computers in the library. But these are the ones that I like better. I kind of like CyberDuck for beginning students because the interface for FTP is so much like a normal computer Explorer window or Finder window. And whereas a lot of these other ones, like even FileZilla, which I like a lot, but even that one, they have sort of clunky, weird interfaces that can be confusing. CyberDuck is not always 100% reliable. It is generally pretty reliable, though, for our purposes. So that's the one I'm going to recommend. So you would connect, and you can watch where it says using FTP software just to test your connection. You can follow this tutorial. I didn't do tutorials for FileZilla. I just did it for CyberDuck, so you might want to get started with this because it's a little bit more intuitive. But watch these. It shows you how to connect to the server with your credentials and how to make some directories and get your pathways started and things like that. Okay, and then there's this thing right here, getting started with the free Komodo editor. Well, what is Komodo Edit and what is the editor? When you're writing web code, you can't just use something like Notepad or Microsoft Word or something like that. You really need to use a good web editor. This is a free tool. It's a great free tool, by the way, and I highly recommend that you use this. If you have Dreamweaver, you can use it. If you don't, this is a wonderful free professional tool. There is a paid version of this called Komodo IDE. Make sure that you get the Komodo Edit version, not the Komodo IDE version. The IDE version will actually time out on you unless you pay for it. So this one will not, and it's a terrific tool. If you click on this link, it'll open in my website. It'll open a new window, and it has 3 videos that will show you how to get started setting up the preferences, how to create some files, and so forth. Okay, basically how to use it. Okay, and finally, down here we have these last two things. We have the software requirements for the class. Again, I explained that everything is really free, but I give you some suggestions about Adobe if you want to look into it. And this, by the way, if you're during a different semester, this might not be accurate anymore. They usually change about every 6 months on their pricing and their plans. Anyway, so how to add and drop classes. I always get this question, so here's a link, takes you right to it. Just scroll down the page when you get to that link, and it'll show you, give you tutorials. Okay? All right, so that is the class orientation section. And real quickly, before we continue down to some of this other stuff, I just want to show you a couple little things. One is there is a course link right here, server connection info. What it does is it basically will jump right to the server connection information that is in the orientation section. Okay, so I don't want that to be confusing to you, but that's so that later in the semester you can just jump straight to that without having to go look for it through in the class orientation materials. Okay. Another thing too, I'm going to scroll down, is under student help, we have contact instructor. This is my information if you want to get in touch with me. And if you need to set up an appointment with me, we can do a phone appointment. And if you need screen help, we can do screen capture setup. Okay. This is also down here, how to add and drop classes. There's a quick link to it. It shows you how to deal with that. On my grades, if you click that, it'll go to your grades. It doesn't work for me, but it'll work for you because I'm not a student. You are. Okay. Other tools are some of the other options that you have within Blackboard. and Blackboard tutorials are here, and also generic student help that will help you with the help desk. Okay, and now in the next demonstration, I'm going to go over all of this other stuff that's inside of here.